About 2 years ago, when I was 17, my older sister took me to an Ariana Grande concert in Texas. We were dropped off at the venue, had an amazing time, and before we knew it, we were getting picked up by my dad. He picked us up in a practically new car that he was test driving for my other sister, since he would be helping with the payments on it, and wanted to make sure he was getting her money's worth. We left the venue and headed for my older sister's place. She's 32, by the way. She lives on the east side of our city in Texas, and there was a particularly high crime rate there. On the way there, my sister wanted my dad to stop at the store we passed by, which was pretty sketchy, but he agreed since she explained that she frequents this store a lot. By the time we get there, it's dark, and my sister and I make our way inside the store while my dad stays in the car. We got our snacks, perused around some more, taking our time before we started heading for the doors. By the time we reached them, I looked up to see my dad frantically blowing the horn and waving his hand really fast for us to get in the car. After we got in, he sped off while he kept looking in the rearview mirror. After we were a safe distance away, I asked him what happened, and he explained to me that he was on his phone when someone caught his attention towards the driver's side window. My dad cracked the window down by an inch, and a man with a dark hoodie asked him if he wanted to buy weed, and my dad said no. Afterwards, he just took out a gun and pointed it at my dad, telling him to get out of the car. My dad was stalling a bit, and was actually going to get my purse and maybe hit him. He was preparing to get out of the car, fearing for his life. Luckily, a car with its headlights on spooked him, so he took off, running in another direction. That's when he frantically started honking the horn and making the signs for us to get in the car. It scares me to think I was only a couple of feet away from the scene that was happening, that my dad's life could have ended right then and there whilst I was nonchalantly browsing snacks and walking through aisles without a care in the world. My dad feared that if we would have gotten out of the store earlier, he could have pointed the gun at us, and things could have gotten so much worse. I used to frequent this store with my sister, sometimes alone in the car while I wait for her. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if it was just me in the car alone. So yeah, that's my story. I'd also like to point out that the car wasn't even paid for yet, and it could have been stolen. To the guy who almost took my father's life and put us in danger, I really hope I don't come across you again. When I was around 6, my parents divorced and my dad was soon given full custody, as my mom is an alcoholic and had racked up a few DUIs and such. Soon after, my dad, my younger sister, and I moved to a new neighborhood, and we transferred to the nearby elementary school. The school was pretty close to my new house, maybe 5 to 7 or so blocks away, close enough to walk, but my sister and I, also a girl, were too young to walk alone. Sometimes our dad would walk us to school in the morning and then walk back, and less commonly he'd walk to pick us up. Most of the time, he picked us up in his black Mazda. The way pickups worked at my school was pretty common. We went out with our class, stood by our teacher and classmates, and when a car pulled up, designated staff members would ask who the student was that they were picking up, and then go find them with their class and escort them to the car. Because my mom was in jail at this time, the only person who ever picked us up was my dad. One day, when I was in the 3rd grade and my sister was in 1st, we were outside waiting to be picked up. After being outside for only a few minutes, my little sister came over to me and said someone who wasn't Dad was in a car to pick us up. He had said both of our names, and they'd found her first. She said he'd smiled at her and told her our dad had told him to pick us up that afternoon, but she said she wanted to find me first before she got in the car since she didn't recognize him. Thank God she did that. Our dad had always told us not to talk to strangers, So I grabbed my teacher and told her what happened. She got a really alarmed look on her face and told us to stay where we were while she told another teacher or something. Our dad arrived to pick us up a few minutes later, and we got home safely. We told him about it, and we all had a long talk about safety protocol. He asked my sister to describe the man in the car, and he called the police and gave him the best description he could, although my sister was very young and wasn't very focused on important details like that. A few weeks later, it happened again, but this time, he said my name. My dad had given the school the same info he'd given the police, but presumably, he had multiple vehicles because my sister said he had been in a red car, and this one was black, similar to my dad's. I saw the black car and ran up to it, but luckily, I caught a glimpse of the face before I opened the door and hopped in. He was middle-aged, really pale, with a really angular face. We made eye contact, and his mouth was smiling, but his eyes looked really wrong to me, squinty and almost angry. I turned back towards the carpool assistant, who delivered me to the car to alert her, but by the time I did, the car was gone, and I couldn't give many details. My dad contacted the police again, but without a license plate, they weren't able to do much. The last time I saw him wasn't until months later, near the end of the school year. I was walking home with a big group of kids that lived in my neighborhood, and he drove by us and slowed the car down to try and talk to us. I recognized his face immediately and alerted the other kids to run. Luckily, we were only about 3 houses down from where one of my friends lived, and we all piled into her house, concerning her parents significantly as we explained the situation. I never saw him again after that. My dad started dating my now stepmom, and we moved to her neighborhood and switched schools shortly after. I still think about him occasionally, though. His face was actually in my dream a few nights ago, which reminded me to write about my experience. To this day, I'm in my 20s now. I don't know how he knew our names, how he knew anything about us really. It's pretty fucking scary to think about what would have happened to my tiny little sister if she'd gotten in the car with that man, and what might have happened to me if I had. To my childhood predator, please, let's not meet. When I was 7 or 8, my grandparents, who we lived with, took my sister and I to the beach and rented a room. We had the kind of rooms where you rent out both, and they connect through a door. There's the doors to leave the room, and the doors to the other room. In the room connected to ours was an army family. Military dad, a wife, some kids. My older sister was supposed to be watching me, as we were down at the jacuzzi during the evening. We were playing, hanging out, and just having a good time. I'd like to note that I didn't get out much, and even for a kid, I was naive. As my sister and I are enjoying ourselves, a random woman sits down right by us. She started talking to us comfortably, as if she had already known us. Eventually, we started talking about books, and then her kids, who are never even seen, by the way, and it simply seemed as if we were having a good conversation. Eventually, my sister decided she wanted to go back to the room, but I didn't. I was enjoying talking with this woman. My sister goes back to the room, and now it's just 7-year-old me and some 40-year-old woman. By no means did I think I was being left unattended with a stranger. Around 10 p.m., she starts talking about going for a walk on the beach to collect seashells. I thought it was a great idea, being able to walk on the beach at night. I felt so free and like a big kid who didn't need her sister or parent. I ran back to the room to tell my grandparents that I'm going on a walk on the beach with a woman. Her name was Sue, if I'm not mistaken. My grandmother was reading a book, barely listening to what I was saying, and simply shooed me off. I left, and started walking down the creepy corridor of the motel we were staying in. The motel was cheap too, which made it creepier. As I'm walking along this poorly lit stairwell, Sue is already at the bottom telling me to hurry up. As I get closer to the bottom, the army dad comes running, hauling ass to where I'm at. He firmly tells me, "Hey, your mom is calling you. It's really important. You need to head back." And basically grabbed me by the wrist, softly, but not aggressively, and led me back to our room. He knocked on the door and explained what had happened. I never thought much of it till about a year ago when it came back to me. This woman was leading me away to the beach alone at night. The army dad must have noticed everything transpiring and had a gut feeling that something felt off. Thus, he intervened. At the time, I thought it was odd that he was saying my mom was calling me, because I lived with my grandparents. I think maybe subconsciously, I knew something was up, as I didn't resist him taking me back to my grandparents and sister. I'm 20 years old now, and I think I finally understand what was actually going on. This, quote, mom was likely trying to lure me away, to do God knows what, or take me God knows where. I was damn lucky this army dad was aware of the situation and took action to prevent me from going. I shudder to think what would have happened if he didn't. Who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have made it back from that beach trip. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, army dude. Your gut feeling and watchful eye saved something terrible likely happening. That woman was creepy, and I never saw her so-called kids.